Hey folks, this is Wayne with the original Master of Orion from 1993, developed by Simtex, published by Microprose, along with a lot of other games, including the very well-known, well, in strategy circles, very well-known Master of Orion 2, the one from 2016, based on that one, and Master of Magic, other games like that. I'm going to be playing this game a lot. It's one of my favorites, and it's been kind of making a resurgence after Mu 4, New Mu came out, and I noticed a lot of guys that are doing it tend to have every series have like this little introductory video, with the Klingon birds of prey and the very dated 3D graphics, and then the overview of the races and everything. So we're just going to condense all that into one video, so you can watch this one anytime you need to refer to it, and then we can jump right in with whatever challenge run or stock race challenge or whatever we're going to end up doing. So first thing we do, start a new game. So you have 4 choices of galaxy size here. That is the dimensions of the map in parsecs, how long it takes your ships across the map, and also how many stars there are. It goes 24, 48, and then you think it'd be like 70 and 72 and 96, but actually it goes, I think, just 70 and then 108 for huge. Huge galaxies are huge. We're doing medium for a little tutorial. 5 difficulty selections. There is no real AI changes or anything like that. It's just a multiplier that the AIs get on their, they spend less and it costs them less to research things. They get more production, stuff like that. We'll do average for this little introduction. I usually play on impossible. And of the 10 aliens, you obviously play one of them, and you can have up to 5 opponents. I think this game is most fun with 5. Unlike in Mu 2, where there's like a fixed number of special leaders, and the more you have, the less likely you are to get them. There's no real reason not to have all your opponents in the game. Makes diplomacy a little more fun, makes exploration a little more fun, in my opinion. So we'll jump in and do this. Okay, so sometimes I'll say race, sometimes I'll say civ, but basically these are your 10 choices. Got to play as one, no custom race option like in 2. The humans, before I go to the specific ones, Mu 1 is an older game. It loves tables. Like a New Gordon Ramsay restaurant, like a D&D manual, there are tables everywhere hidden in the code. And there's a matrix for how every race feels about every other, for what technology, there's six technology fields, what they're good at and what they're bad at. So just some very broad strokes. Every race has 3 traits. It has a special power. It has techs, it's like technologies, the fields they're good at or bad at, and then it has that relationship thing I mentioned. So humans are good at force fields, and they like everybody. Everybody likes them. They are start off with +1 diplomacy basically across the board with everybody else. Mershon get a +4 accuracy. We'll talk about that when we get to the technology and ship section. And they are good at weapons, kind of goes hand in hand there, or hand in claw. But their diplomacy is bad. They hate the birds. I scroll right past them. Hate the birds. Birds and cats hate each other. So Mershon can be a little tough to play. And they don't have an economic bonus. They're bonuses for ship combat, not for like getting more factories or anything. The Silicoids are interesting because they have 2 special powers. They are immune to, they can settle in any environment. Planets start off as, I think, 7 different types of habitable and 6 different types of hostile. I forget what exactly, but the planetary types, they're roughly 50-50 on most maps. And Silicoids get access to all of them. They're also immune to pollution, which we'll discuss when we get to the slider, planetary section. In exchange, they are bad at all research except for computers. And they're mediocre, diplomacy. Nobody really hates them, but nobody really likes them either. The Sakra get double population growth on their planets. They are really good at planetology, but they don't like some aliens. They don't like the cats or the birds, if I remember right. The Cylons, their special power is to be good at research. They are good, they're above average in every field. And they're also above average diplomacy, and nobody hates them either. So Cylons are a very good choice. If you've played the Civ games, what are the strategy games, advancement, you can win, 10, 100 to 1 odds well, 100 to 1 probably not, but you can win pretty good odds in the Civ games if you're ahead technologically. And more so in Mu 1, which is a simpler game, it's possible to be so far advanced, enemies can't even hurt you. And Cylons are the best ones to get you there. The Alkari they get +3 on their ship defense, and they're good at propulsion. Birds are good at flying. They, like we mentioned, they hate the cats and they hate the bugs. Birds and bugs do not get along. That takes us next to the Klakons, who are probably one of the strongest civs in the game because their special power is that their population gives you double production. So, and what that means is that, we'll talk about that pretty shortly when we get to our planet screen, but every planet has a certain amount of production it creates. It's in the factories that you build on your population just by existing. Klakons get more of that. So their growth curve is very strong, and they get the most useful early bonus. Like Cylons don't really get a lot until you can afford to research. Klakons are good from the beginning. They stay good all the way through the game. They're one of the best ones to play for beginners. The Borathi get a bonus on ground combat. That's when, instead of colonizing a planet, you can take over an enemy's by sending your population there to invade theirs. And they are the best at that. They get a huge bonus for that, actually. And you would think that would make them a good contender, but the problem is they get no other economic bonus, so it's harder for them to get in that dominant position to get into that. To get your ships over their planets, you can send your people there. And they are bad at computers, which is one of the most useful all-around tech fields. It's kind of it's like the technology that makes you better at other technology, and the Borathi are bad at it. They're the only ones that are, and they're also pretty average diplomatically. The Meklar are my personal, second favorite. These guys are my favorites, but the Meklar are one of my favorites, and their special ability is that each population point they have can control more factories. So that gets diminishingly useful later on, and it has a problem where, and we'll discuss shortly how, having more factories makes it harder because you have to deal with, there's a pollution system in this one to kind of counterbalance, going all in on industry too much, and the Meklar could have an issue with that. But because they're cybernetic, they're very good at computers, and like I mentioned, the Borathi is an important field, and I actually don't remember who they like and don't like. I think they like the Silicoids, fellow inorganics teaming up against the carbon units. And then my favorites are the Nazgul. Well, basically the Nazgul. They're Darloks. They get a bonus on espionage and security to defeat other people's espionage. They're the only race that interacts with that system natively. They're also good at computers. The trade-off is everyone hates them. You start off with uneasy relations, basically a -1 diplomacy with everyone for that. Okay, so those are our choices. Like I mentioned, Clacons are good for beginners, and we have a save. That'll be the first game I'll be doing, actually, so we'll take a look at them. Your flag doesn't matter. It's what color your planets are, and it changes what your ships look like. Red is your Star Trek Federation, saucers and nacelles and stuff like that. They all have a little bit. They're all a little interesting. I kind of like purple with the bug-themed one, so we'll go with that. There we go. A little bit of a hiccup there. And you get every emperor has a list of names he gets. We're going to stick with that. And a default homeworld. Okay. So here we are looking at, you'll be spending probably 95% of your time playing Master of Orion looking at this screen. So your homeworld is always a yellow star, a yellow sun like Sol, ours on Earth. And you will be somewhere in the galaxy. In this case, we're kind of in the top right. You can immediately, unlike in Mu 2, you can immediately see who your competitors are. This is actually a fairly tough draw. Because we humans are kind of strong, right? Cylons, the strongest opponent you can be if you're already the Clacons. Borath, you have to worry about your planets and stuff like that. Yeah, this could be pretty tough. Fortunately, we're not actually playing this one. Okay. So this could be a little intimidating. Instead of moving meeples and assigning population like in the Civ games, the more people are probably more familiar with, you have these series of sliders. And more importantly, only 2 of them are even being used. So early on in the game, you're not going to be interacting with too much of this stuff. So the first thing we do is you hit F1, generic help key. Okay. So like they say, ratio bars, planets production. All right. Let me get this out of the way and we'll come back to it. So this, so the planet production is what they mean here. So this says 82, and how that's calculated is that we have 30 factories. Every factory is 1 production if you have the people to man them. So if you have enough worker bees, worker drones, in this case with the bugs, to man those factories. And like we mentioned with a Mechlar, every 1 population, unless you're the Mechlar, can run 2 factories. So all of them are being used. That's 30 points. And we have 50 population. Normally, your citizens at half a production just by going to work and doing commerce, doing whatever it is people do. But since we're the Clacons, they produce double that. So we get 50. Every one of our people produces 1, and then another 30 from the 30 factories we have. That's at 80. Now you can see that we only have 69 we can actually use. And that's because we have some ships to start off with. And there it is, ship maintenance. So until we get this colony ship to colonize something for us, we have to pay for it. So something to think of as you progress through the game, unlike in some games where it's worthwhile to have a standing army and use them to defend your colonies, prevent unrest, stuff like that. It's actually not worth it in Master of Orion to just have ships sitting around, because they're probably going to be obsolete by the time you actually use them, and you only get a fraction of the value if you have to decommission them. Okay, so now that we've looked at production, how that's assigned, and everything, we'll bring our help menu back up. Okay, so that's how our 80 points are assigned throughout the options we have on our planet, divided into 5 areas. Okay, so ships. So of our 80 production, we'll go to factories first as we're building it. For industry production, a factory starts off costing 10, 10 credits, 10 production, and once you subtract the amount, about the 20% or so, we have to clean up the pollution from the factories we already have. See, we have about 50 or so left over, and sure enough, that's building our 5 factories. So that's what that means for. So it could be a little intimidating at first, looking at the green bars and just seeing where those points go. But that's all it is basically. Is that we have this amount, and we allocate where it goes, and that's how it works. So, for example, you might have, if you were eagle-eyed, you might have seen that our scouts were like, I think one, well, they're a fraction of a maintenance point. They're not really a maintenance point, but they cost 10 BCs. Oh yeah, let's go through that again. So if, on the other hand, we did that 50 into our scouts, we can build 5 of them, because they also just so happen to be 10 credits. And if we did fighters are a little more expensive, so we can get fewer of them. So you can see how that works. Ditto for missile bases. They cost, man, what would that be? Like 200, 250 if we get one of them in 5 turns. So so that's basically how that works. You don't have to think too much about it. It's just good to know sometimes exactly how that works out. Okay. And then this one goes further into the stuff I already mentioned. Here's our population out of the maximum you can have. So we are currently half, our home world starts out half full. This only really matters because a planet passively generates more people. Your colonists reproduce and stuff like that. There's a hidden value of hidden, like a truncated little fraction there of how much it goes up each turn. So we're getting like a +3. So every turn we'll be getting 3 million more. And there's kind of a parabolic growth where there's a sweet spot of about half full of a planet where it produces the most people, and then as it's empty, and then as it gets full, it takes long. They don't reproduce as quickly. So then, and the reason why they have actual production adjusted is that's what I mentioned. Is so currently the only thing we're paying for is the maintenance on our ships. Later on in the game, if you're spying on people, if you have taxes in your planet tab, and we'll get into that later, those all reduce from every planet. So any individual planet is going to have less than its full amount available to actually use. Okay, and we'll cover these buttons as we get to them. So the first thing we do is deciding where our initial ships go. We're on the top. You always want to have a border instead of a backyard. So we're going to be trying to head south. That's 4 parsecs away. Our starting technology only lets us get 3. So we actually can't send our colony ship down to the south. We're going to have to send our scouts out there, like so. And I think the only planet within range of this is the only star we can send our colony ship to. The human player is guaranteed to have 1 habitable world within 3 parsecs, and no alien homeworld can be closer than, I think, 7. The AIs do not get that benefit. So the human player gets a little bit of an advantage there. So we'll check this one out too. We'll have that scout go that way and this scout go that way, kind of check out all the planets nearby. All right. So then we click through the first couple turns. You can see, since we've got more factories, we have a little bit more production to work with. Now we're getting a little bit more. And one more turn. See what we got. Ooh, okay. So steppe is the class of the planet that's habitable. All that means is that like I mentioned, the tables, is that the quality of a world influences how likely it is to be rich, poor, fertile or not, and what its typical population range is. And that's it. Other than that, it's just what happens to look like. You can totally get 60 population jungles and 90 population steppe. It's just unlikely. Look at that. We have found our first colony. Okay. Then our scouts will be getting their next turn. So we'll go and run one more turn, and then I will. Okay, so we have planets within there. Okay, so we have a very good planet here within 4. Okay, so the important thing is to know if you have like worthy planets you want to expand to, and what the range you can and the range you have for them. So what some people would do is just go ahead and start building a second colony ship quickly and grab this one because it's within 3. We don't need any technology to reach it. I would rather send our first guy here to the south and to start getting more territory in the direction the aliens are likely to be. So what we're actually going to do is spend money on research. Now, there are a lot of little tricks and tips and tricks that go into research in Master of Orion. Uh, Basically, just so you don't get overwhelmed on this one, the two things to remember are that low and slow, simmer. Don't dump all production into research at a time. That is less efficient than gradually increasing it. There is a hidden bonus to, I think it's 7.5% of your of the amount of research you have in, and if you increase that above what you had the previous turn, you keep that bonus going. So I mean, and you don't lose it. It's like every amount up to that point, you'll still get your bonus to it, but you'll get a better return if you keep gradually trickling in more RP, more R&D than just switching back and forth between okay, fire all the scientists, start a new ship project. Whoops, hire them all back. The game wants to encourage you to gradually do your research. The other thing is that whenever you get a new technology, you lose 10% of the research going into it. I think it's like per field, so it only applies when you first start researching, or if you drop down to 0, which you should never do. Well, sometimes you might have to, like if you get a supernova on your only planet, stuff like that. But for the most part, just gradually do your research. And then we'll do the equal sign, equalize spending, just to make sure that we can take a look at everything. Okay. We will, and the last little thing too is we're going to leave this ship here, our scout here, just because there's a little meta game thing that the game never tells you, is that a lot of times if an AI sends unarmed ships to a star, and you have a ship there, armed or unarmed, they'll run away from you because they can't shoot you down. And if an alien can't scout a planet, they can't send troops to invade it. They won't know what's going on with it. So you can hold that star for longer than if they get a chance to scout it out and decide, ooh, I want that, and they'll try to take it from you. So we're going to leave this guy there while we send this one out to continue scouting. And normally you would build more scouts of your own to check out more planets at the same time. Knowledge is power, but we're not going to be bothering with that just now. So we'll see what research options we have. Okay, so research. Every technology, you can kind of think of them in 3 ways. A technology has economic potential. It has exploration potential, like this one. It detects ships further away. It doesn't do anything else for us, but that's still useful. And then the last is military application. Those are your weapons, armor, bombs, stuff like that. So this is an exploration tech, and it's the only choice we have, so we just have to deal with it. If you get a technology in a given field, and and we'll talk about tech levels when we go back to the research screen, but you might have seen like everything on the side there had a 1 in it. That's why we start off tech level 1 and everything. The game divides up its technologies into tiers of 5 levels. Not every level has a tech associated with it, and if you get hope you can't hear that. Somebody just started mowing. So there are 5 tech levels in each tier. If you grab any one of them, it will allow you to access the next tier, so you can see what next batch of technologies you can access. So this is the only choice we have. Okay, we have 2 economic traits in construction, and construction tends to be pretty good about that. Factories, like I mentioned, cost 10 credits. This lowers it to 9, 10% reduction. I would rather reduce our pollution. That's the only choice you have. Some tiers of 5 levels only have 1 technology in them. The first tier of force fields is one of those you have to get. Class 2, there are no other options. Okay, so planetology is interesting. This is an exploration tech, and this is an economic tech. If we had seen a barren planet, and sometimes people will encourage you to wait and scout all of the initial stars within the area to see if you have any barren environments, just in case this one pops up. But barren isn't very expensive, and the next tier has another environment anyway, so I usually don't stress about that. In any case, well, let's go ahead and grab this one to increase the population cap on our planets. Okay, another propulsion is mixed between military and exploration. The engine increase your ship speeds, and the exploration techs for fuel cells. So clacons are bad at propulsion. I try to minimize how much I spend here, but early on you have to. You really want to reach stars further away. Okay, weapons, as you might guess, are almost all military techs. Uh, in general, missile techs are a little more useful because you're not guaranteed to have as many of them, and they increase your missile bases. Those are the defensive things on your planets. And Gatling lasers, I'm a big fan of these, but the problem is like, okay, they do 1 to 4 points of damage. I just mentioned how everybody has to get deflector shield too. So you start off losing half of your maximum potential damage if you go with Gatling lasers. It's a very awkward tech to get the most out of. It's really only useful if you're up against an AI that likes running lots of tiny ships and fighting you with them. And the Clacons are usually the AI that does that. And we're the Clacons. So I don't anticipate that being an issue. Okay. So that's kind of the overview on tech. There's the tech levels I mentioned, different kinds of technology. All right. Let's jump into another game where we'll start talking about races and diplomacy for a little bit, and then we'll go into ship design, and then that'll wrap it up for the intro. All right. Here is a Mershon game, if you can't guess by the goofy cat names I gave for it. So this is kind of an interesting one where we are the dominant, well, the Clacons are always a threat, but we're the dominant force in the galaxy. We have the most people, we're the most kittens, we have the most planets. We're doing good, across the board everywhere else. And they don't like us for it. So we have crushed the Darloks, who nobody really likes, got them down to the last planet they have left, and the Alkari recently declared war on us, and that we're trying to maintain relations with these other two. So I would imagine this is a typical scenario on Impossible, which is a difficulty that we're on. Somebody didn't like us and immediately declared war. They dragged an ally into war, and the others were just trying to keep them appeased while we keep from getting overrun by everybody else. So how did I defeat the Darloks? So the first thing I did was I put my tech on espionage, I put my spies on hide because it's hard to steal from the Darloks, and to keep an eye on them. So you have a tech report. Okay. Interestingly, I did Alt P with this little thing to scramble the AI personalities in this one. The Darloks are all pacifistic, and so everybody hates them. It's kind of funny. But so I did a report on them, and I noticed that they were doing fairly bad on research. They don't have any planetary shields. That's a stronger shield that stacks with your regular deflector shields to prevent damage to your planets. And planets also take half damage from beams. A lot of people, if you don't read the manual, might not know that. So I could see that their planets were vulnerable. They didn't have very good missiles to use against me. So what I did was bring up my ship designs. So I did most of my work with these. I had about 20 of them, and a Scatter Pack 5, like the Hyper-V missile we talked about last time. They're a MERV pack of those. Do 6 points of damage. At the time, the Darloks only had 2 points of shields. So, and missiles and bombs do full damage to planets. So these just destroyed their missile bases. I defeated their missile bases with my own missile ships, and then I basically took out their own ships with these. The Mershon get a bonus to hit. The Darloks they have engine techs, but they're not good enough to deal with that. And sure enough, I had very little difficulty, wiping out their bases, wiping out their fleets, and invading them. Now, to contrast that with the Alkari are substantially tougher. They have ground techs, they're going to be tougher to invade. They do have the planetary shield that I mentioned, and they also have class 5 deflector shields, unlike the 3 the Darloks have. So they have 15 points of shielding on their planets. And the fusion beam that I mentioned that our latest ships have, even the stronger version of that only goes up to 30 damage. So, like I mentioned, have beam weapons halved against planets, 30 divided by 215. I can't actually hurt them with my best guns. I have to improvise. Okay. So we look at this one. It's like they have Battle Computer 3. Okay. So that's actually kind of low for the computer tech that they have. It's like, okay, I can work with this. So they have Stinger missiles, okay, class 15, the 15 damage missiles, but they're not very accurate. So what I would do in this situation is we need lots of ships. We're going to get bombers that are designed for dealing with their missile bases. So we do full speed, full maneuverability, do that inertial stabilizer, put our best bomb on. Oh, that's right. I was researching a new bomb tech. Yeah, see that 9%. So we'll bump that up until we get it. It'd be funny if I get it again, because I actually got that on my first, the first time I clicked next turn when I played the game. Yep, there it is. And I'm pretty sure the game doesn't save the seed on that, so I just got lucky twice in a row on that one. But so the Omega 5 bomb does up to 50 points of damage. We are totally ready to go with, totally ready to rock and roll with that. Okay. So once again, we do Critical Stabilizer, adds to our defenses. Okay. Do this one. Maximize the maneuverability. We'll explain what that means shortly. Make sure we can fit a bomb on there. And then let's get a mix of, there we go, and a mix of computer, kind of limit our available space. So what did I do here? Okay. How the game determines your firing weapons at you is if you have a zero attack level. Well, let's go with this one. You attack level of 2. If we were attacking somebody with a defense of 2, like maneuverability of 2, let's say, you have a 50% chance of hitting. But I have maneuverability of 5. So if these ships had guns and were shooting at each other, they would have a 50%, okay, minus 1, 2, 3. So because of the difference, 2 minus 5, minus 3, they would lose 30% or have a 20% chance of every attack actually connecting. And that bottoms out at 5%, which is why you want to have as much, as many ships as you can get, so that even that 5% chance, every 20 you have, odds are you still get a hit. So that's still pretty useful. Okay. So, and then likewise for missiles, although there's an added wrinkle of jammers add to your maneuverability, for missiles, and missiles also get an innate bonus to hit. See that plus 3 to hit on the Stingers. So the Alkari have a 3, Battle Computer 3. They add 1 because every missile base has a battle scanner, so 4. And their Stingers get a plus 3 to hit. That's a plus 7. But we have a missile defense 8. So we can tell that is a 40% chance, only 40% chance, of every missile going through. And you could probably drop that even further. And probably what I would do normally is actually wait another couple tech increases to miniaturize things so you can fit a better computer on there. But going in completely as is, we would know that every missile only has a 40% chance to hit and does 15 damage, so the ship's going to survive, 1 missile on average. So we could send a little scout in, see how many missile bases they have, and then we know how many. That is just math to know how many bombers to build to survive. They're only going to get shot at once, because a planet is 7 tiles away from the other side of the screen from where you start. We'll cross that in 2 turns. So they're only going to get shot at once. So they can just survive 1 salvo from the planet and possibly dodge it. You might be able to evade things. We'll show when the actual games start how space combat works. That's a little outside the scope of the intro. But yeah, that is a solid bomber design. And that's the kind of thought you go into. You take a look at what they have, what you're expecting to deal with, and then design your ships accordingly. And we'll just scrap that for now. Okay. So those are the races we're at war with and ship design. Let's take a look at one of the ones that we're friendly with. So we have no treaty, we have a trade agreement, and they're neutral to us. What can we do? And the Klakons, you might remember, are the dominant force in the galaxy. So let's see what we would do with them. We want them off our back. So we'll do offer tribute. Okay. All right, cool. So we know they're fairly strong technologically. They're bad at propulsion, so it's no surprise they don't have this one. So we're actually going to go ahead and give them a tech, make them like us more. Miss Kitty. And let's see if we can double that trade agreement. Sure, sure enough. It's kind of funny they mention that. I don't think this is actually a factor, other than it's like, oh, okay, well, if you gave us tribute before, and then improved relations, then we'll cite that as a little flavor text thing. But regardless, that's pretty funny. So we just managed to get that double trade agreement. They're going to like us more for making an agreement, maintaining an agreement, giving them the tribute. Let's see if we can further. Oh, okay. They didn't go for that. That's probably because we're still at neutral or just a step above. So we'd probably want time for that agreement to mature and then come back. But regardless, I think we've got them off our backs for now. So the last thing we'll do is take a look at this. We don't really need anything they're offering. So we'll just right click to cancel out of that and leave. You get about 3 agreements with an AI before they get tired and cancel the agreement. And that's not just a flavor text thing. You actually do get reduced odds of them agreeing the more you bother them. And then you have to wait for, basically you have to wait for their patience meter to come back up, and that's hidden from you. You basically need to wait about 5 to 10 turns after an ambassador leaves for things to go back to normal, which is a long time. So just think of world diplomacy. Sorry, you're not gonna like that UN agreement because it was 10 years ago. All right. So with that, that's pretty much everything taken care of. A little overview on thoughts on ship design, fleet composition, how you go after an AI, the techs you prioritize. You generally want to go for economic techs like robotic controls. Use that to improve your economy. You can see how much research we're doing here. Even as the Mershon, we're not even that strong. The Mershon, like I mentioned, have no special bonuses to production or anything like that. This is just, us having bigger planets, having more factories per person, cleaning up our pollution, and just using that to fund all these tech advances. All right. Well, that's all I have for you for now. We'll be going into things in depth as we play through. The first video for a Klakon assimilation challenge, conquer a huge galaxy in the shortest amount of time. That'll be going up concurrently with this one. And I'll probably be doing the impossible stock race challenge sometime in the future too. So let me know if you have any questions, but otherwise, thanks for watching.